This is Heather Moore. I am the DNC whistleblower that filed a complaint with the SEC 2 weeks before Byron Brown's offices got raided. That very likely, according to an investigator that I spoke with from Albany, who was apparently working for the Lieutenant Governor, Kathy Hochul, and her husband, an former federal prosecutor, to do an independent, unbiased investigation into why I was being refused cancer treatment, which is discrimination. And it all started out as Title IX violence by law enforcement and doctors. And then frauds. It was also fraud schemes, multiple fraud schemes and RICO violations involving politicians from both major parties as well. I don't think I'm the only whistleblower that got Byron Brown's office raided, and I want to stress that. I spoke with let's just say I spoke with other whistleblowers who had worked for the city of Buffalo who expressed a whole lot of other stuff going on, issues that they had with Byron Brown. And I need to make one thing clear to the press, that the attorney that I went to work that hired me, swore me in and immunized me and put me to work on cases, one thing he taught me is that when you send a text or an email, you recreate a recording in writing of what you told to them, and when they respond to you, that serves as a recording of their response and how they responded. And I'm going to tell you right now, from 2013, I haven't deleted a single email out of any of my email accounts. So what I have ultimately in my audio recorded phone calls, in my audio recorded conversations with risk management, especially at Mizzou, all of the emails that were sent to the police departments, the various oversight jurisdictions who do oversight on quality of care, the jurisdictions at the Attorney General's office who do oversight on Medicaid fraud, all of the emails that I sent directly to the administration at Family Health Center of Boone County, to many of the chancellors and the Civil Rights Office at MU, to Banner, to Honor Health, the conversations with their risk management. When you assert a discrimination claim, you have to prove that you brought your concerns to them and that you gave them an opportunity to make things right. And what I recorded, not only in their emails, but in the phone calls and in the recordings of the doctor encounters and the police encounters and the administration encounters with administration, was them saying, screw you, we're not going to treat you for cancer because we don't have to. And basically they got recorded being so stupid and ultimately, in some cases, refusing to respond to my emails and just ignoring my emails. And I actually have an email forwarded to me by Katie Huddleston Smith, who investigates victim tampering at Columbia Police Department, who was a former advocate and I guess a voluntary board member at Central Missouri Stop Human Trafficking Coalition. I had sent out an email, and I guess Nanette Ward noticed that it went to Katie Huddleston Smith, and Nanette Ward, whose husband is Craig Ward, who's a bureau chief at the Missouri Department of Health and Human Services, or something to that effect. He's a state official, basically. And Ward is all over the newspapers and the news for helping federal prosecutors, attorney generals, police departments investigate and work with human trafficking victims. So she's ultimately a police agent. And she's all in the papers in Columbia for being close with police detectives at Columbia Police Department. And she actually put me in touch with police detectives at Columbia Police Department to talk about human and child sex trafficking that I witnessed. So she's vouched for my credibility. But ultimately, Katie forwarded me, she apparently saw that I sent Katie the email, and she sent Katie an email and said that our our policy is to just ignore, disregard Heather's emails. So we have an MU faculty member, though she's not actually former faculty, but they assigned her legal counsel to defend her when I tried to get a restraining order against her in a Boone County court. They provided her with legal counsel because she was acting on behalf of MU when she was tampering with my neighbors and threatening me and telling me, threatening my neighbors and telling my neighbors to screw with me and all these other things. Basically, I still have that email forwarded to me from Katie Huddleston Smith. So basically, I have plenty of proof that not only did I make an effort to give them an opportunity to fix in harm reduction, or what's called restorative justice, I gave them every opportunity to try to keep this quiet so Beth Sweeney doesn't have to be blasted as a murdering sexual molester of her patients, and Diane Spalding doesn't have to be blasted as a murdering molester of her sexual abuser of her patients, and Darla Munoz, Natolo I at home, the insecurity, and Virginia Piper. Give me my cancer treatment and let me get on with my life. Apparently, they've told so many lies to so many different federal jurisdictions that they can't do that. And what's more, they really thought I was going to die any minute. They knew I was having heart attacks. They knew I was rupturing. They knew I was repeatedly relapsing into sepsis. And I think that the most of their stupidity and their refusals to go ahead and fix their post-surgical errors. And I believe when a doctor does a surgery and you have complications after that surgery, that's his responsibility to fix you up after he screws you up. And in this particular case, we're talking about Catholic Health, SSM St. Mary's, Dr. Clark Andelin in Mexico, Missouri, where Katie Huddleston Smith took me. He said he was doing biopsy, and instead he did an ablation so that nobody can do a DNC biopsy. And then accelerated the cancer, so I'm constantly fighting sepsis. And the GYN at Catholic Health, Dr. Nora M. Shaw in Buffalo, said we can't put her under and do a hysterectomy either because she's a major health risk. With all these heart attacks and the sepsis, she's got to go straight to oncology. So they did this harm, and they did it deliberately, and it was Me Too form of, and I recorded Clark Andelin being sexually inappropriate in those exams, and it wasn't that he was really coming on to me. He was kind of acting like he was. Oh, I'm Mr. Mo living on YouTube, and you can look up my videos on YouTube, and there was somebody called Mo Lovin on YouTube, and there was one where he was talking about ass on face like it was some sort of sexual thing. And I was telling Katie about it, and I recorded it, and it was basically him, I guess, mimicking what happened with Beth Sweeney, and he was basically doing the same thing Beth Sweeney did. I guess he was recorded trying to use sex to influence me to hide the harm that he was actually doing behind the Medicaid fraud. At that point, I wasn't covered by Medicaid, but they had been trying to get me fraudulent. I kept recording those doctors trying to push me to apply for Medicaid and SSI benefits. And I recorded Darla Munoz trying to do the same thing, and I'm like, Darla, why are you telling me to use knowingly falsified medical records to get Social Security benefits? You know I can't do that. And I said, what's more, I'm able to work. And they were using the product of my investigations, but they were just using it amongst themselves to make themselves look brilliant. They weren't actually doing anything about it, and just blackmailing each other. Well, you tell on me, I'm going to tell on you, and, just using it as leverage to keep You know, they couldn't really go after Darla for her gay bashing against Beth, because then Darla could turn around and say, well, you're committing all this Medicaid fraud. Let's nail you for that, and drug diversion. So, it was just a bunch of back alley deals being made behind my back, and I'm still not getting cancer treatment. So now I'm in Vermont. I'm in Burlington, Vermont, where Bernie Sanders can hopefully get me proper Bernie Sanders and all of these people in Vermont, like the Vermont governor and attorney general and the mayor here, can hopefully get me properly sequestered as a whistleblower forever. I don't think anybody here is going to hurt me, but I've already been approached by multiple investigators for attorneys who said they work for attorneys, and one of them was trying to lure me to Florida, where he said he had a bunch of boats and he could sail me to Cuba, and that he was from a wealthy family, and he gave me all of his military history. He was a very sincere, very sober man. He's not crazy. He's not like a crazy homeless person talking about how he has money. I believe him. And I found it interesting that he mentioned he was Special Forces, and he was from a wealthy family, and Virginia Pipers was taught Special Forces, and she was a Navy pilot, and he said he was a Navy pilot during Vietnam, and they're both roughly the same age, and they're both from wealthy families. And Susan Boys says she was from a wealthy family, and she was an EMT during Vietnam, and she was friends with Piper. And so there's this guy's trying to lure me to Florida for cancer treatment. Come on. I mean, this is just, and he's staying in a homeless shelter here. He no more needs to be here than the man in the moon if he's got money and boats that he owns in Florida. So I've let the authorities here know that man had done that, and I've let people at the state and at the state level know that I'm a whistleblower, that I'm here, that I got the Mayor Byron Brown's offices raided, or was one of the probably many whistleblowers that got Byron Brown's office raided. I think what pushed it over the edge for me as a whistleblower that got Byron Brown's office raided was that he was stupid enough to send his brother to contact my roommates, and my roommate was an addict, and she was high, and she shot her mouth off and threatened me and bragged about getting to meet the mayor personally, in person, and then stomped off and said, do what you gotta do, and slammed her door. And that right there means if he's sending his brother to screw with my roommates to help tamper with me as a rape victim and as a whistleblower, we got you dead to rights. You got no fall guy anymore. You got nobody to blame but yourself. And there's only one way Byron Brown can know what was in my medical records, and that's if somebody, I didn't send him any emails. I didn't notify him of anything. That means his pal Cuomo and Letitia James, his other pals at the DNC, whom I did write up the fraud to, and what they did was, and here's the thing, I got 2 letters, one from the Department of, both of them were from the Department of Public Safety, but 2 different departments. One investigates professional misconduct by doctors, the other investigates the administration, who's supposed to do oversight on the doctors. And both of them said they were refusing to do an investigation. Well, if you're refusing to do an investigation, what are you doing? Why is this information getting to Byron Brown if you're not doing an investigation? That doesn't even make sense. So somebody's doing an investigation. They're just reaching out to Byron Brown to help obstruct the investigation, and I'm guessing that would be Cuomo and Letitia James, because that lawyer my landlord had to run off the property had mentioned Val Demings and Letitia James. So I tried to practice restorative justice, and then they just ultimately refused. So they chose to embarrass themselves